Welcome to the Eschatology Podcast. This is Cliff, and I am here with Steve Stern, Commissioner of MECA at the MECA headquarters, just north of Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for having us here, Steve.
Hi, Clifton. Good to have you. Thanks for coming.
So I think the last time I was here was probably around maybe 15, 20 years ago, something like that. MECA was part of your garage at the time. It's grown up since then in many more ways than one. Before I met you, obviously, you were into car audio in other ways other than just MECA. What was your how did you get into car audio in the first place?
I got into car audio because I like music. I love music. It's part of my life. It was part of my life as a teenager. And, honestly, I started putting in car audio systems. I would have been about 14, 15 years old, and for cases of beer. And they were 8-track stereos, and that's all we had. That was an advancement. Our speakers came from Radio Shack, which were generally pirated from the home speakers. And car audio was just becoming an industry more than just, stock stuff.
Right. So you were a rep for a while before that as well. How'd you get into that?
Let's say that was about 1968, 1969 when I was putting in the stereos in high school. So then get to college, 1972. I graduated high school and I went to college at WVU. And I started selling and designing home speaker systems for people and just going to the stores and negotiating deals so I could put in stuff, especially at the university, for professors and doctors and people that were, getting into the hi-fi stuff. So I got into that in college. And then, of course, car audio was always in the background, and did the retail stuff until we started a rep firm in 1984 in Pittsburgh with my friend Jeff Fear, who still has the rep firm. Right. And we had lines that nobody had ever heard of, including us. And most of the lines that we had over that, I was a rep for 17 years and quit in 1999, 2000. Most of the lines that we had now, they're dead. You don't even hear about them anymore. They're done. Right. They went out of business.
What would you say is one of the biggest challenges for you during that time as a rep?
Well, we were independent reps, and, they didn't really get the best opportunities. Factory reps, being employed by the factory is the way to go, still is the way to go. And, we were on our own. We had to pay our own expenses. We had, very little support from the factories. A lot of the lines we got, because we were independent and were not associated with the big factories, were new lines. So we were helping to build lines, and, the pain was we would build a line and maybe have it up for up to 8 or 10 years. And then one of the bigger companies would say, hey, that line looks like it's worth something now. So
After you built it up,
let's go get it.
Yeah.
And they would, and it'd be a finger snap. So that was the most frustrating part, was doing a good job and not really getting back what, you would think you would get out of having your own business. It just didn't work that way.
Sure. How did you get into competition in the first place?
Well, I was always into what I still call high performance audio, high performance car audio. So we were always tricking stuff out and taking home stuff and putting it in cars and just playing with that. I had a car audio, quote unquote, exhibition in like 1972 when I was still in high school. Had me and my friends, we all got together, and I can't even tell you the weird stuff we put together in these vehicles, but it was awesome, including a trunk of beer with ice and beer, a trunk of a car with ice and beer. But my partner in the rep firm told me that one of our friends, John Love, was starting an organization called USAC at the time, and we partnered with him, and we were on board with USAC and helped develop the first USAC events, especially in our area. I lived in Pittsburgh then, so we did a lot of shows in Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. I went to Michigan. Wherever USAC was going to grow, we went there. Right. And very dedicated to that, just like I am to MECA now.
So what was kind of the birthing of MECA? How did that come about?
Well, I'd been with USAC for 10 years in 1999, and just something happened. And, I was young, and when somebody did something that I didn't like, I usually walked away from it. So I walked away from something, and it just wasn't a good situation. And I was pretty much done with car audio sports. I'd moved here to Nashville in 93, and I'm a songwriter and musician, and that's why I moved here. So I really hadn't planned on keeping the car audio thing going as much. But, I moved here and the situation kind of just came together where, I started doing the USACI shows down here and people liked them. Then 99 came. I said I was going to quit. They said, well, we need something. And then a group of about a dozen people put me up. I would call it put me up to starting MECA as kind of like the figurehead, because I'd been in this in a while and had the industry contact. And, I was supposed to do it for a little while and then somebody was going to take over, but that didn't happen. So I still have it. And we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year doing MECA, and it's incredible.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I would have never thought in a million years that we'd be doing MECA shows in China. I'm communicating today with somebody in Thailand, doing MECA shows in Thailand. I mean, it was just for us to have some fun. And that's still really the base of what it is to have some fun and to learn something. But it is incredible. There are hundreds of MECA shows a year around the world. It's crazy.
That's amazing. What would you say is one of your proudest moments or of accomplishments in MECA?
Well, my proudest moments are dealing with the people and knowing that we're doing a good job.
What about challenges?
You name it, we got it. I'm just one person. I basically do this myself. From the office, I have my son Ethan help with trophies and some stuff. It's all about having the right people in place. And so that's a big challenge, is getting the right people to be event directors and judges, especially finding talented listeners for sound quality judges, passionate judges for sound pressure too. I mean, it's really hard to find somebody that wants to do the work and is good at it. A lot of people say they want to do it, but then they do it and they, I don't know. Not really. I'd rather compete, and that's great. We want people competing in MECA. Every challenge out there that you can think of for a small business is there, keeping in mind that there's just a handful of businesses in the world that are really like MECA, that are, sanctioning organizations for car audio, but MECA is also a trade association for the industry. And, we're the club first for the members, and we're a sanctioning body and the trade association. So we, have different hats, and we have a lot of people, thousands of people involved in what MECA does.
Right. Yeah, and I think that was, I came into competition with MECA really, with you, because I was actually looking for reference material, and
I remember
found them talking about the Focal disc online. So then I started looking for the Focal disc, and then I found MECA, and then found that it was in Goodlettsville, where I was living at the time. So we were like 2 miles apart.
Very ironic.
Yeah.
Meant to be. Fate. I have to say it's fate. I believe in that.
So it all started out in the quest to get a CD, and then here I am. And I owe a lot of that to you. So.
About 20 years later.
Yep.
And I do have to just say also, not saying you owe it to me, but, Clifton did meet his wife in MECA, Becky.
Yes, I did.
So we have some children out in the world that,
Yes, we do. We have
MECA,
4 MECA babies.
It's awesome. That's one of my, honestly, Cliff, that's one of my proudest moments.
Thank you.
High five.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, it was definitely a life-changing experience getting into it and being able to really be part of the ground floor at that point. And I didn't have a lot of experience with the other organizations, which I think was a benefit at the time, because I wasn't copying, anything coming in, working on that with you. MECA has always seemed to be driven for the competitor first.
Try to.
Whereas, I feel like, IASCA, which I love IASCA too, and it's nothing against it, but it's just.
And I love IASCA too.
The background of, IASCA came from the manufacturers, and it was kind of built up as a manufacturer thing, and competitors, I think historically, maybe not as much now, but historically have been more of the product of the organization versus being the actual consumer of the organization.
Well, we're set up that way. I'm glad you see it that way, and that's, you get it. You get what MECA is about and what we're trying to do, and we are for the competitor first, because if we can't get the competitors, the majority of them, most of them, somewhat happy with what we're doing, we have nothing, really. We have a club with nobody that's happy or nobody even doing anything. So it's important to me that, on all levels, that people know that, we care about their experience here And we have specific goals that are, pretty simple. Basically two of them, fun and learning. Learn about your system and have fun at the shows. And part of that is the social experience, really getting to meet the people. And that really is the biggest thing about MECA, over and above the music and the gear, is the people.
Right. Absolutely. How do you think, because MECA, obviously you've been involved in the industry a long time, but MECA kind of grew up during the same time that the internet grew up. And so how do you think social media, with all the Facebook groups and everything else, and that amount of, attention and conversation, how that has affected things over the years? Because like when we first started working on the rules together, it was one of those things where it was email and phone conversations and you and me sitting down in your office. And now it feels like there's still some of that probably, but there's a lot more of everybody having an open conversation about it, which I think, it brings a lot of good ideas to the table. At the same time, it can add some confusion. So how has that, and obviously I'm not involved at that level now, which I'm fine with, but
lucky you.
But how has that impacted things and perceptions of, the organization and the rules and the people making the rules?
Well, again, a broad answer. In every way. It's revolutionized our lives in every way, revolutionized our cars in every way, revolutionized our phones in every way. It's extraordinary. And, watching it happen, I've lived it. From my first cell phone was in a box bigger than what you brought in,
right,
Cliff.
Right.
And I had to take it out, and it was heavy, and I could hardly hear anything. And if I drove 2 miles in any direction, I lost the signal. But anyway, no, social media is it has, just like everybody says, it has its good and its bad things for the people that are good spirited for MECA, and let's say, and for car audio, sports in general. Just decent human beings communicating, it's perfect. For people that, I don't want to be too condemning, but some people just don't get it, and they spout their not gettingness, not getting itness, or I don't want to say ignorance, and I didn't say that. We're not going to delete that, but I didn't say it. No, it's just, a lot of the things I read online, and some days I just about want to cry when I see stuff that people think about me or about the organization or about another judge or somebody in the organization. It literally does break my heart, because that's not what it's about. MECA's about inclusion, not separatism or being divisive. And, we want to support each other. We don't want to tear each other down at any level, and that's just a human thing. That's not just MECA, but I'd like to see that, as an older person, watching a lot of you all grow up, I want to see that for you all, because I know that that's where you're going to end up. You're not, for those of you that are the angry folks or the, there's just some people you just can't make happy. And, boy, I sure think I try, and we all try, but, you just do the best you can to let people understand how much you care. It's hard to do over the internet. That's why I'd rather use the phone as much as possible to, talk to people and work things out, especially when, how can I have a show? Well, boy, there's a lot to talk about there,
Right.
Well, do you have a place to have it? No. Okay, well, it's going to be hard. Do you have any hosts? No. That's going to be tough. We can get a lot more done. I use social media as a tool to promote MECA events. Not so much myself or anything, although I do music and I promote when I have music shows and stuff. Right. But you're not going to see me putting pictures of what I ate for lunch on my Facebook stuff. It's about MECA or music.
Right. How would you suggest people, and again, our meeting was very happenstance or fate or however you want to say it, but for most people who might be intimidated by the process or by the system, who don't understand, I think, how would you suggest those who, especially on the sound quality side, since that's what we're talking about, but those who have feedback or suggestions or need clarification, what's the best route for them to go about that?
Well, just get in touch with any judge. And sometimes, people ask questions. Usually what people ask questions about are things that are gray areas, because they're trying to read between the lines. And come up with new stuff, and that's great. We want the sport to evolve, and we want people to advance the sport and do new things. You know, it would be awful boring if they didn't, you know, as far as creativity and installations and things like that, and using the equipment. Come to the shows, talk to the judges, get in touch with me. I mean, I'm pretty available. You know, my email's MECA Car Audio, 1C, MECA Car Audio at Comcast.net. And I have people call me and contact me all the time for clarifications, and I sometimes will not have the answers right then. Sometimes they are things, well, nobody's ever, I've had this, I've said it, I usually say it 3 or 4 times a year at least. Nobody's ever asked that before. You know, nobody's ever thought of that. You know, but I certainly understand if there can be some confusion. It's hard to write the rules, you know, and I've been writing rules for a long time. In my previous job, before I ever did any of this, you know, that was one of my main things, writing procedural guides and things like that. So we do the best we can. Our rule book now for sound quality is basically done. We've had some tweaks on our scoring, which are coming up, but that's not going to be hard. And then our sound pressure rules, they're just about done. Our rule books are the best they can be. They're done by really people who really care. I mean, you can believe me one way or another, but I mean, we care about what we're doing. And it's funny, I thought the other day, when you look at our Rules and Ethics Committee, we have about 200 years of experience among us, okay? Of course, a lot of that's me with 40-something. But anyway, but I get that credit. I'm due that credit. I'll take that. But but we do have a lot of experience, and we are competitor-oriented. We want it to be fair, and we want it to be fun. So we're just doing the best we can. We're not trying to hurt anybody. We're not trying to really help anybody. We just want it to be fair and fun.
What's the makeup of the R&E committee as far as what's the incentive, you know, for the people on the R&E committee to make a decision? Are they looking at it from, you know, mostly a competitor basis, from a manufacturer basis, from you know, where does their credibility lie in that?
Yeah, no one that I know of is a manufacturer representative in any way. Although Matt does build some speakers.
Their home audio.
Yeah, right. Could be used anywhere, but still, I mean, no, our people, their agenda is let's make MECA better. We love MECA. Honest to God, I really think that's what it is. I don't think it's maybe at first it might be kind of more of a personal thing. Oh, I'm on the Rules and Ethics Committee. Right. You know, wow, you know, give me a star.
Right.
You know,
but once that wears off.
Yeah. And then they say, oh, there's a little work here.
Right.
But they really do care about what we're doing. There's no manufacturer agenda whatsoever. That's one reason we started MECA, is we saw in the other organizations that we were dealing with at the time, you know, and I'll say unquestionably there was manufacturer influence beyond and above anything that was acceptable for a competitive sport in a fair level playing field. For sound quality people, and for everybody, but for sound quality people in particular, I've always said, and if I can get this right in my P's here, you know, MECA is not about personality or product or politics. It's about performance. And that means scoring in the lanes. And that's what we try to teach our judges. And that is our agenda, you know, as far as, you know, what we want, you know, from what we're doing for the people, you know, as a result of the rules.
Right. So if I'm a competitor, I've been to 3 or 4 shows, and, you know, I see something that might be one of those, hey, Steve, this is my question, and you say, oh, I hadn't had that question before. So then I assume at that point you bring that to the R&E committee by email or whatever.
Yeah, and a lot of times on those, there's no obvious answer.
Right. Well, let's say there is one.
If there's an obvious answer, I try to give it, but I usually do say, hey, you know, I'll pass on to R&E, or let's just say it's a sound pressure thing. I'll pass on to the sound pressure judges. Hey, there's this. What do you think about it? And just make sure we're on the same page. Sound quality things you know, do come up, but most of the time we're on the same. You know, I think now with the rules being even better this year, more descriptive and more clear, should be even better for consistency among the judges.
So when an issue is brought to the R&E committee, for an example, what is usually the process of that? I mean, because I think from the competitor side, it goes into a dark hole, something happens, and then either nothing happens or something happens. And I know you and Vinny especially are really good about communication on that level. Just for clarification's sake for everybody involved, I mean, when it goes to R&E, what's the process there?
It's basically, I guess, like a filtering process. It'll either come to me. Most of the stuff comes to me, or it'll be issues that the judges have kept track of all year. We ask our judges to keep a little notebook. If you have any issues, we need to go over for next year, please let us know. We're not going to change the rules this year, but for next year, let me know. But for anybody, they can pass on suggestions, email, phone, whatever. And I do keep track of that. And we do go over every one of them. Some of them are dismissed rather quickly. Some of them are really argued about. Right. You'd be surprised behind the scenes, But we go over everything as much as we can. Some things get traction, other things don't. Some things make sense, some things don't. Being that we're looking at it from a competitor's view, but also from a judge's view. And one of the main rules we've had about making rules is do not make a rule you can't enforce as much as possible. So we really try to be sensitive to that. There's a lot of things you can't enforce. A lot of things people want us to do. We just not practical to do, or we just can't do them. It's just it wouldn't be possible.
Sure, Papason and I talked similar about this, but I guess my bigger point is I want people to understand that it's not a decision is or isn't made based on them being liked or who they're associated with or anything.
If it's a good idea, I want it to be better. I tell people this all the time, and they may or may not believe it. If I think that something that I do can make it 1/10% better, I'm going to want to try it.
Right, and I've seen that in you. So
it's some of it. Sometimes that's stupid. But it's trying to do the risk. And I tell this to people quite a bit. You're going to make suggestions, and you're going to see the rules come out, and you're going to see your idea in there, kinda. Okay, it's not exactly what you wanted, but neither was what he wanted over there, or she wanted over there, or I want here, or they want. It's a lot of it's compromise. So you're going to see. You're going to also see things that are suggested that aren't in the rule book that we can still incorporate. Can I give an example?
Sure.
Just for example, before at the end of the season, Dan Arndt from Pennsylvania made a couple suggestions, but one of them that got traction was let's have. I think we should have a consistent award for the Zenner. Okay, I think the Zenner
physical award.
Yeah, it should be the same at every show. It's the Zenner.
Okay.
And so I talked to people, and that made sense. So before you leave for your SQology shows, I have Zenners for you that you don't pay for, the club pays for, and they're all the same, and they say the Zenner on them. And the Zenner, for those that don't know, honoring Chris Zenner, is for the Sound Quality League Best of Show, the person that has the best total scoring in RTA, install, and sound quality. And so that's the highest award you could get at that show for sound quality.
Wow. So
there's an example. It's not in the rule book. It doesn't have to.
Right,
okay, but it was a really good idea, and we incorporated it.
Right.
So now at every show, I bought over 90 awards. They're sitting in the garage there.
Wow. Right. Yeah, I think that's a great idea because it does make that consistency with MECA, and I think that's one of the things you've also done a great job of over time is staying in control of what a MECA event is.
It's hard.
Yeah. Well, because everybody's going to have their own, any event organizer or event director that's been doing it a long time and really gets into it, gets their own signature part of how they do shows as well. And sometimes that can reach out maybe a little bit too far, and sometimes it comes back.
Yeah.
Or
we allow for that on international. Like they can do whatever they want. They have their culture. I'm not going to tell them how to run their life over there. But, we want the MECA shows to kind of be the same. If you go to a MECA show in Texas and a MECA show in New York, you want them to know you're at a MECA show. Right. And, of course, we want the outcomes and all that to be the same no matter what. So I just, want to encourage people to come out to MECA shows and give us a chance, and just remember we're all human, and we're trying to do the best we can. I do want to compliment my judges and the event directors. They don't have to do this. People complain about a lot of things, but they, it's like the old biblical saying, you can see the cracks in the ceiling, but it doesn't mean you know how to fix them. Okay? Well, that's the way it is. We're trying to fix them. We're trying to keep things going. We have a culture here that is worth preserving. We love music that is worth preserving. MECA's, for the sound quality people especially, it's kind of like music 101. It's kind of like going to college and learn. It really is learning about music and appreciation. Music appreciation 101 might be better, combined with the technical aspects of it. And that's a big part of what we do. And for the sound pressure people, they want to be loud. We give them that latitude, and we give them a fair contest. But come out to the shows and have fun. If you have any questions, let us know. We're very open, and we we're here for you. We really are. I mean, this is a club for people who love car audio.
Especially over time, the training for the MECA sound quality judges is probably one of the most advanced of what anybody is doing.
We're trying
overall in experience, especially because it's not just here you go, slash dash and run, do your thing. You're actually trying to get them in front of real music in both the studio and a live environment, comparing that to how it translates into a car, and then actually kind of judging the judges on how good they perform as judges when they're putting down the score sheet. You want to kind of give some background on how that program evolved and what your what your fundamental goals are with the judges training? Yeah.
Well, it's evolved quite a bit. We've worked in studios in the past, and we've worked our way up to the ultimate location now, which unfortunately, as of a couple days ago, is not available for us this year. And we're going to punt on that. We'll have something else. Probably going to be pretty good too. But anyway, we went from just kind of sitting in cars and just talking it over to actually going into the studio and demonstrating how our test sources, CDs, sound on a professional playback system that is pretty much set up like a car, like almost a pillar-to-pillar type speaker set up in kind of the perfect room. And, when we can do that, that's opens up a lot of eyes and ears, because you're not used to hearing things being so precise. It's something when we talk about movement of the source or of the voice or something, nothing moves. It's all where it's supposed to be, and that's just the way that is. Combining that so that we give them a good live experience, because really being a good judge, one of the biggest factors there is a sum of your music and acoustical experiences, listening to music. So the more experiences you get, it's not like one of them's going to be the absolute best, but they all combine. So like when we go to the symphony, which is part of the training now here in Nashville, we have world-class symphony with a world-class hall. I'm not saying that's the where-all and the be-all, but that's pretty close. And you put that together with the rest of what we do and the scoring training, then that culminates hopefully, in the best scoring outcomes for our competitors. And given in mind, please keep in mind, it usually does take about 3 years even for the best judge to become the best judge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it takes some training and time. You got to sit in really hundreds of cars.
Right. Please.
Just want to say, too, about judging. The funny thing about judging is it's easy to judge the cars that are highly evolved. Everything's in its place, or where it's supposed to be, and it's pretty much there. And it's the cars that are a little out of whack. They're the ones that are hard to judge. Okay, it's hard to judge. It's hard to give scores to something you've never heard,
right.
Or it's not really covered exactly in the rule book, or it's not bad, but the way the rule book describes it, it's like, man, I'm really going to ding this guy if I do what it says here. But you have to go with the flow. So keep in mind, judges, it's a hard job. It's a hard job. And it's really think about having to sit there and, analyze something. You're quantifying something that's usually not quantified,
right.
So it's like being a surgeon, but it's not a body, it's music. It's hard to be a good judge, sound quality judge.
Without, I don't want to open the box of worms of MECA versus IASCA or versus EMA in what they are listening for, but what would you say is your goal with MECA for the quote unquote sound that people are listening for in their car? Because in the judges training, you're going into a studio and into a live performance that's not amplified. Those two things are obviously very different. In a car, I think it seems like, and maybe I'm leaning from the ASCA side more than the MECA side just because I have more recent experience there, but it seems like on the ASCA side especially, there's the judges that are listening for a live sound that has a lot of ambience and is big, and maybe even a little more squished in terms of staging and imaging, and versus, a studio sound that's very precise and, more, the vehicle's more dead inside, you know what I mean? It's more of a smaller, more precise sound. Is there a way to define that in your mind?
I know there are some differences. We're kind of looking for the same things. It's just, I think one of the major differences is MECA, turns it up a little bit more. Looking for a little bit more headroom, a little bit more precision and accuracy across the spectrum at 110, even up to 115 dB. Keeping in mind that's an average, it's a peak.
A peak, right.
Yeah, right. So I think we're just looking for a combination of everything. That's why I pretty much talk about the combination of your musical experiences, or what I call specifically the musical memory. I have all these experiences. I've been to live shows. I've been in a jazz hall. I've been in the symphony. I've heard the rock bands. I've been in a stadium. I know what a choir sounds like in a cathedral. I know what a band sounds like in a stadium. So you have all these experiences and you put them together. But we are looking for it to be exciting and have that live music component.
Right.
Okay, just a little brighter. It's like one guy, remember the guy and everything. Remember the day I told him this. He scored about a 76. And I said, man, just turn up about 4K and 10K. Just give it a little bit. That's all you need. That's all you need.
Right.
And he did, and now he's scoring in the 80s,
Wow. Yeah.
Just, I don't know what else he did, but I know it was pretty much instant. I mean, he changed instant,
Right. What advice would you give to somebody who is new into either competing or judging, or wants to be more involved at that level, but, they've maybe come to a show or two and they kind of see what it's about, but kind of not. And they might be on the edge thinking, oh, well, if you're not at this level and you're not this person with this name and these connections, then, it's just not possible. I'm just going to show up and it's never, I'm never going to make it. Or the guy who's really excited about it and sees all the possibilities in front of him to grow into that. Because anything, it's at the end of the day, it's competition. There's going to be a barrier entry to a certain degree. I think, MECA has definitely worked hard to be inclusive of everybody at every level in that. But, if given your experience at both ends of the scale, what would if you could just tell every competitor right now, don't worry about this, worry about that, what advice would you give to somebody coming into the sport?
Well, first thing is don't worry about anything but the music. If you're there, it's about music in your car audio system. That's why you're there. So you're there to learn how to make it sound better or how to use it if you're not familiar with the controls. Most people that come to the events, they don't expect the socialization type, welcoming.
Right.
They're pretty much welcome to the event. A lot of people love to talk about their system and they love to share their knowledge. And some people have more and better knowledge than others. And you kind of got to weed through that. But the way to weed through that is to see who's winning,
right.
And don't worry so much about the equipment because it's granted the very expensive equipment. There's something to be said for that, but that's more of a prestige thing at a point when you can buy just about anything and make it sound good if you know what you're doing.
Right.
And I'm talking just about anything, or at least make it sound decent, maximize its performance. The best judges generally do come from a competitor pool. So, if you want to be a judge, we want to see you get at least 2 or 3 years of experience in the lanes and know that you're, comfortable there, that you understand what's going on, that you get it. And I say that a lot about MECA, that you get it. And we want you to come on the team. And we do want to train judges. We want new people, especially in areas that don't have MECA. And we need event directors in places that don't have MECA there. I get people calling every week. Why can't I have MECA shows in Vermont? Why can't I have MECA shows in Montana? Well, I've been to Montana 6 times, and I'm not going to go through what happened up there. But anyway, we've tried, and
Right.
we can't go. We can't have shows without hosts and sponsors. So
Right.
we've got to all get together. And when you see most of the events on the MECA schedule, they come from the members interfacing and working things out. So to hook me up with somebody to have a show or a retail store or something like that. So be involved with a good team is another thing. Which could be at a retail store or an independent team. There are factory teams if you can work your way up to that, but you're going to get a lot of help and support from a factory team or from an independent team. And of course, the local teams, there are a lot of them are feeling their way in too, but some of those folks have a lot of knowledge and experience, and you can pick their brain, and that can help you get a better sounding system. So work on your system and your music first, and pay attention. And if it's something that you think you like, then of course, stay with the club, and the judging opportunities will definitely come up.
Right. Absolutely. Good. So on music and evaluation and cars, if you could, and I know this is probably the hardest way to ask this question, but if you were limited to one track, one desert island track, what would it be to listen to?
I already know.
Okay.
I already know, and I hate it. I hate it and I love it because I know it so well, and it's Spanish Harlem.
Yeah.
You know, the standard.
Right.
Is that Rebecca Pigeon?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I know that song inside and out. I know I've heard it on literally $1 million system.
Right.
Literally. So I know what it sounded like there. And I tell you, our car audio systems sound better in some ways. Some of them do than that. But yeah, it'd be that.
What are you listening for when you?
Well, I listen for everything, but you just listen for the criteria in particular. The bass note. It's very pronounced, and it's not supposed to move, and it's supposed to be the same output level basically the whole time. And like it goes dum 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 dum. Well, I know something's not right there.
Right.
All right. Her voice. I mean, it does have sibilance, but it's supposed to be under control. So you have to keep
right on the edge.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, very much so. And the instruments are sparse and well placed, and it's pretty easy to read them and hear them in their spaces. Right. So it's just a very, very revealing picture that they bring.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's really important, and I think that's great about, again, MECA having like the bonus tracks and that have worked into it, because I think one of the biggest criteria for reference music that I try to give people is don't go based on what I use, base it on what you have the most experience with. Because I mean, there's a couple tracks that I use that I've heard since I was born on countless different scenarios and systems, and whether it be in a church or
it's like in your DNA. Exactly. At that point.
Yeah. And
I
think, especially if you have a couple of those tracks that you're able to get a lot of experience with, like what you were talking about earlier, it kind of makes what I call a kind of a Mr. Potato Head in your brain, of all those different things, and you're able, there's no one perfect system. Even those $1 million systems aren't perfect. But if you're able to take the best of each one of those scenarios that you've heard it in, and be able to kind of put together the perfect system in your brain.
That's what I call the musical memory.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
Boom.
And that's, everybody has a different one.
Right.
And you can always add to it. It's not finite.
Right.
And tracks. Yeah. So I would use that one to judge, but also I really like just about anything from Keb Mo's Suitcase album. Just the recording, the production is just incredible. The song Suitcase is on our accepted list. He's an incredible performer live anyway, but they really capture something incredible on his recordings. He's got an amazing team. That one there is a favorite. But, I like Brothers in Arms, Dire Straits, Money for Nothing.
Yep.
Even the live Hotel California. Mm-hmm. I love that. That sounds awesome. So, but, if you're talking about precision, then you really need something like Spanish Harlem that's very discreet and not just full of just so much noise and stuff going on that, I mean, it sounds great as a whole, but it's hard to pick it apart, or it's not really what it's about. I mean, if it can play Spanish Harlem good, then it's probably going to play everything else good.
Right. Based on your, you've obviously been in the industry a long time. You've seen a lot of things come and go in terms of, products and what methodologies and everything else. What are your thoughts right now of where we're at with the quote unquote high res movement? Right.
Well, we've accepted that into our program. I mean, so that's not a problem. I mean, we're more accepting about that. I don't know about than anybody, but we're about as accepting as you can be. We want the cleanest sources possible. We even allow, I mean, we don't make a big deal about it, but if you want to go in and you think you can enhance the track better than the original and you don't think we're going to catch you doing it, or you think we're going to really like it, you can do that. It's with file sharing and file manipulation, all that. We're way past all that now. It's a rule we can't enforce rules with strict with restrictions on the tracks and on the source. So we've opened that up.
It comes down to being a policeman versus a judge.
Yeah, and like we're not the battery police anymore, and this and that. So I've seen some incredible stuff in the technology. I know we're not done. In the next 5 years, who even knows? Right. I mean, we may not even have car audio system. I know that's not true, but I mean, for an audio system,
based on what we think of now.
Yeah, I mean, we might just have hologram type headphones, and we just walk around and press a button in our temple, and we have music or something. So we don't know what's coming, but I've said a million times, there's nothing more fun than having a great vehicle that's running and safe and everything, running down the road and playing some good tunes. And that's, people will always love that. They'll never get tired of it, and we know how to judge it. Right. So we're just going to keep doing that, and we want everybody to enjoy their system. And I do want to take a second, and I do want to thank you and SQology for what you do to help promote sound quality, the sport, and just the awareness of it. It is important. And it is much appreciated.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having the video. Without MECA, SQology wouldn't be what it is. So, at all. It probably wouldn't exist. So, thank you. What's your thoughts while we're talking about things that we don't know where they'll be in 5 years? What are your thoughts on 2-seat versus 1-seat?
Well, normally I would say I'd see it staying where it is, but because there really has been an increase in the awareness and participation in sound quality, there are people that are going to be coming into the sport that will understand that there is 2-seat available to them. Some people do it more as an add-on as opposed to being a serious 2-seat competitor. Myself, I believe the 1-seat, it's your vehicle, you're sitting in the seat, everything is tuned for you. That's a good place for us to be judging, So I believe that the 1-seat's not going anywhere. And I think the 2-seat will be part of the program as an add-on. I don't know if it'll ever be as popular as 1-seat. Common sense, I don't know common sense, but my instinct says it's not. But it definitely has a place, and, we definitely know how to judge it. Right. So, I don't know. I see it just kind of staying the way it is, but I see more as far as the rules and everything, but I see more people competing because we had more people last year than ever. Of course, we had the best finals ever, astounding numbers to me. So I can see that increasing for sure.
Speaking of finals, where do you, because I think, I came in right after that. I think all the IASCA and USAC and everybody kind of had this big breakup in 98, 99 with the competitors.
We started in 99, and that's when I quit USAC, so yeah.
Right. And same thing happened in IASCA. And I feel like especially a lot of the competitors who are still involved now in the industry who also left at that time in 98, 99 have this, remember back when cardio was good, when competition was good, they all the memory cuts off at that point. And so
and then they start to remember what went wrong, which wasn't the industry so much, but it's just a combination.
And I don't mean the industry as much as people who are involved in the industry now who also stopped competing about that time. So it feels like for people like me, and I would say most of the current crop of competitors who came in after that, there's this constant harping of the remember when old school, well, that's great, wow, there used to be 200 people in my class back in the day, and the numbers keep growing over time, and even going back to the late 90s, early 2000s when I first got involved in competition when I moved down here, even the bigger shows like DB Drag and stuff like that were having their finals in Louisville, I don't remember it being that huge, the way people put it.
And they weren't.
And I think to another, cool. Right. But I think to another side of that is, maybe some of that, so many people involved is part of what happened as well, because I think a lot of people probably got lost in the shuffle. It didn't have the connection like we have now. And it also kind of discredits the people who are involved now because, oh, well, what you're doing is just a waste of time. That's what it kind of feels like, in the face.
I hear it a lot.
Yeah. But
believe it.
Right. But what would, especially now when, now we have self-driving cars on the horizon and everybody's, kind of giving a farewell to the car as we know it. It feels like. What would you say? Have you seen any aspects for reasons why you've seen the growth in MECA over the past couple of years? I mean, other than you doing a great job. I mean, we know that.
Thank you. But well, not always, but I try.
I mean, because again, all indicators from everything would be saying things should be getting worse.
Yeah, well,
they're not.
I think the basis of it, there's two parts: the people and the music. We've got good people, and the music is the music. So, given that, that's why I think no matter how it evolves, because actually now that you bring it up, and I just thought of this, and maybe I'm the first, but probably not. Basically, what we're heading to is our cars will be car phones. Maybe we'll hit a button and it'll go in our pocket, and then we'll open it up, and I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? So, as long as people want to hear good music in their vehicles, what we do will be not so much in demand, but it will be necessary.
Continue, right.
Yeah, it'll continue, and I see that for sure. I mean, you think, okay, MECA 1,000 years from now. I mean, who even knows? So, I think the main reason people come back is because of the people. Yeah. Really, you have to have that. If they didn't like us, they wouldn't come back. And even if they can just barely tolerate us, which I know that happens, they're still going to come around, because then the music kind of takes over, or the desire to, want the better sounding, better performing audio system. So, I think we're good, and everything's cyclical. Yeah, there's good times and bad times. We did just come off a bad time. I'd say maybe up until about 2 years ago. Last year wasn't too bad. It was pretty good, really, and 16 was okay. But we came off that 2008 financial crap. That hurt everybody in the industry. And one of the biggest things that can make us or break us is gas prices. Right. As far as really going to the shows and enjoying it, and making that part of your lifestyle. If gas is $4 or $5 a gallon, you're going to probably want to go bowling or watch movies or something. Right. So.
Oh yeah, and I think it definitely gives an excuse for people who have like-minded ideas to be able to come together and have that social aspect, because we more and more in a society, it seems like we as individuals are in our cocoons, and you don't have that social aspect of actually getting in front of other people and enjoying each other's cars and listening to them. And that, that's the biggest thing I try to get to with people when they first come to an event is, it seems like a lot of people, their first instinct is to go drive in the corner, sit in their car, wait for the judge to come, and then sit in their car, maybe get a trophy, and then leave. It's like, get out of your car. I know it's not comfortable. Right. I mean, I'm an introvert. I don't like talking to people any more than you do, but trust me, it's worth it, to push through that. And, I promise you, unless somebody is, really under the gun or doing an install, if it's Charles Haley on Friday night at World Finals, maybe not the best time to talk to him, but hey, the rest of the year, all but that 15 minutes, trust me, he will do anything. And it's consistent for everybody. I think nobody doesn't like talking about their cars. Nobody, no matter what it sounds like, I've never had somebody go, oh, I don't want, don't listen to my car. Right. Maybe once, but
the only time that would be like if you haven't been judged yet,
right?
And you want to get your judge, and then you open the car up. And a lot of people are like that, and I would be the same way. I would say wait till the judge is done, then I'd be glad to have you come back.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But I think if you're able to gauge things in that regard, people want to show their car. People want to talk to you. People want to help you learn. It's one of the biggest things I think about this industry is even, so many people that have been my competitors in competition, or now my competitors, at the manufacturer level. I've again never had somebody go, no, I'm not going to talk to you about that. If you ask and you're authentic and you're not, it's not obvious that you're trying to take advantage of somebody, they will open up and they will listen, and you will both learn from the experience.
Right. And we had that video on the Vice News on HBO back in October, which was very cool. And if you search, go to YouTube and search Vice News Car Audio, you can watch it. It's about 5.5 minutes. But one thing I said in that, and it still blows blows my mind. And it is one of those things that did make me feel awful good was one of the guys came up at the Tennessee finals. And he said, one of the best things I like about MECA is I've made 50 or 60 new friends. And that's awesome. I mean, where else can you do that? And, you might meet 50 or 60 people, but to say, even if you get two good, decent friends, but MECA can do that. And I've seen people in the same class help each other when there was a problem, whether it's sound quality or sound pressure competitors. People generally, they're generally good people. So, and it's here for everybody to take advantage of, and it's not like it's going to cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Maybe tens of thousands of dollars.
Unless you're Brian Mitchell.
Okay, but I mean, that's a different thing.
There's a lower barrier of entry to this, I feel, than most things.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper to do a car audio system. Of course, you got to have the car first, which is kind of a given. So let's just say everybody's got a car. Right. So, but it's cheaper than buying a boat, or even some of the bowling shoes I've seen are expensive. So
anything could be expensive.
It's a cool thing, and you get some really cool music if you take care of your car, and your system will last you, just about a lifetime.
Right.
Even though the gear, you're going, oh, I want to play with this and I want to play with that. But, if you just do it right the first time, it should be all right.
Is there any one big thing you wish you could have told yourself 20, 30 years ago?
Get into real estate.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I'm a musician, and I'm a musician first and a songwriter. And, there's some things I might have done a little different there. But, being self-employed and everything has its advantages. I wouldn't change that. I don't know. When I was younger, I know I was a little bit more brash and a little bit more, not so much confrontational, but I really, wasn't in good control of my frustration experiences. But I think I'm better at that now. And, I just want to treat everybody right and want to be treated right.
Right.
It's the golden rule.
Yeah. What do you think subdued your reactions in those situations?
Time and just realizing that, it's important, and I'm not going to undermine the importance of what we do when somebody's doing it and they're serious about being a world champion or a state champion or winning a contest or making their system better. I do not put that down or discount that a bit, but just people get a little too carried away. And, we say it and we laugh about it, but, it's just car audio, right. And you kind of have to keep that in mind. And it's not the closest thing we have to a science, of course, is in sound pressure, we have a meter. Right. That's science. In RTA, we have a meter. But other than that, it's pretty subjective. And the best we can do is get everybody on the same page as close as possible to know what good music sounds like and what our program sources sound like. So when they judge the sound quality cars, they're as close as possible to having the same scores in every category. Not just that it all adds up, but
right.
In every category, it's very close.
Right. Do you think there's a way to make sound quality more objective without fundamentally changing it? Or because I think it's something that everybody, especially the first maybe 6 to 12 months they come into car audio, they automatically see things that I feel now over time are kind of features of sound quality competition as flaws. And I'm sure you've seen it year after year after year after year, countless people who have, great ideas in their head about how to make quality more objective or slamming sound quality because it isn't quote unquote objective.
Then, so should we not have sound quality then? Or just have RTA and it's just about RTA, which you have a good RTA. Generally, that means your system sounds like crap.
Right.
That's a technical thing. It's not a musical quality thing. So, let's face it. And this could happen. And I've thought about this, and I'm not the person to do it. But if somebody wants to, give me $1 million for my idea, write this down. If you could develop a robot, an acoustically sensitive robot that can pick up soundstage and ambience and all these cool qualities that the human ear can pick up, and you can develop that, and that evolves to the point that it can judge contests like on a stand or something. You put the head on a stand and the ears where the ears are supposed to be, whatever. Let's do that. But, I think that's going to be pretty dang tough. I'm not saying it couldn't be done. Right. And even if it wasn't done right, if it was just done where it's the standard, if that's the standard, that's the standard. Right. You could have 10 people make 10 different robots. Right. But, I could see that happening, but who's going to put $10 million into judging car audio contests? Now acoustic engineers, they might have stuff coming along that could do that.
Right. Well, and the other side of that is I think that with the music and with car audio and sound quality is there's so much of it comes down to the emotion of the perceived emotion that happens in that moment.
Yeah, and not all tracks are emotional.
Right.
Or it depends on who's listening too.
Well, and there has to be a dynamic, I think, some kind of dynamic between car and the judge that works. And it's, to me, I come from a background in audio, but I'm also big into like photography and stuff like that now. And I think it's the same, similar to judging a photograph, trying to say, here's this, Henry Bresson picture from whenever, and it's, if you were to put it through a formula for a computer to scan it and say it's good or bad, it would probably say it's bad because it's not all in focus, and our iPhones now would have thrown it out because it's too blurry. But but that's part of the emotion that was in the photograph. And in another aspect, I think that comes up a lot is every few years somebody brings up the idea of doing hearing tests for the judges. Yeah. But again, I think it's a similar thing where do I want my 12-year-old with perfect sight judging art, or do I want an 85-year-old seen the Sistine Chapel and been here and been there and has all those experiences that we talked about? He might have to get 8 inches away from the painting or the photograph or whatever, but his feedback means more to me, somebody's quote unquote objective opinion of what they're seeing. Right.
And like training a sound quality judge, I mean, they might love music, but they've never had to quantify that before or think about that before. And they're pure. They don't, they don't have any alliances or allegiances to brand names. They don't even know what they are. All they know is music. And I've had engineers with that type of experience judge and try to judge for us. And they do a good job, but they're just not into it long term because there's not that much, if they're a good audio engineer, they're making $100-200 an hour. And they're involved with, really famous people who can make them millions of dollars in time. And with us, it's like, here's $50. And, I'd give you more if I could. Here's a peanut butter sandwich. Right. Thanks for coming. Right. Really appreciate you. And we do. But, and then people get critical of the engineers because they're too critical. Right. Because they really know what stuff sounds like. And then we start getting other issues.
Yeah. I think the only thing that speaking of, like the bias issue, and I think that's a big deal with sound quality judges mainly because of perceptions. I mean, like we've talked about with, SQology, even it's growing up because we don't have a plan for it. There's no agenda or anything else. By not having an agenda, people automatically assume there's an agenda.
The devil's involved.
Right, exactly. There are sacrifices and everything else. Yeah. So I think it's somewhat similar in sound quality judges. And, maybe if we had more of a bio, a background, of the judges that are, MECA certified, like on the website or something. And I'm just thinking this out loud while I'm sitting here, really. But it feels like if we knew more about, quantifying beyond MECA training, why they're a judge. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think there's a lot of judges that are not judging because people think they'll be biased when they might be the most qualified people. And on the flip side, there are people who might be seen as incompetent who are judging because they don't have, people don't know their background.
They don't have the experience. So there's a lot of, so many variables.
Right. But, if there was a way to objectify, we may not be able to objectify the process as much, but maybe if we could objectify the judges a little bit. Well,
the best.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's tough, but I mean, the best criteria, the best judgment I have on the judges and the judging is just watching them over time. And, people basically weed themselves out pretty quick if they're not interested or just doing it kind of half-assed. Yeah. Okay. So we could weed them out pretty quick because it's kind of suicidal at that point. It's like, get me out of here.
Right.
But
Yeah.
please. But we just watch people, and I watch the score sheets as close as I can, and I know. I mean, there's all kinds of biases, not just equipment. There's
Right. Absolutely.
with
People
biases, equipment biases, and I don't know what goes on in anybody's mind. I can't read people's mind, but I can tell when there are certain kinds of things going on, and I try to limit that as much as possible.
Sure,
And I do pay attention when people tell me that somebody's not judging something right, or they feel that there has been favoritism shown. Then I really try to explore that, and it's not so much I'm going to be pointing a finger at anybody accusingly, but I just know for later.
Right.
Because when I really need to know these things is at finals, and that's how we pick out our finals judges, by really who's shown over the past year or longer, generally longer, much longer, that they are consistent and unbiased. And one thing, if I could address just briefly, something that comes up a lot is, well, that guy's judging his friend's car. This comes up all the time. I mean, especially in a closed community like ours. I mean, pretty much either we have pretty much all friends except for those enemies or whatever. But, we all know each other. And I mean, on that basis, nobody could judge anybody just about. I couldn't judge anybody because I consider just about everybody a friend. And, and I don't like to judge much anymore anyway. And no, people are glad of that. But, you just have to trust the judge. And I try to trust the judges, but I do keep the manufacturers out of it. I mean, that's just an obvious no-no. And that was something that, if it wasn't for that happening in the past, there probably wouldn't be a MECA. So, very sensitive to that.
Absolutely. And as it should be, because I think that's an immediate perceived issue.
Yeah. I mean, if there's that perfect scenario where somebody does have an affiliation, let's just say, for example, Clifton would come to a show, but nobody that's competing that day has that equipment in their car,
right?
Equipment that you rep. So what's the big deal?
Right.
I don't think you hate any of that equipment. So why couldn't you help judge? Or, and some people will say, well, I don't care if he could possibly be biased. I want him to judge my car anyway because he's him, not, whoever it could be. Right. And I get a lot of that. Like, can you have this person judge my car? I know he's not a judge, but I'd like for him to just sit in your car and let him tell you what it sounds like. That's right. All, for goodness sake,
Right.
But, and just trying to do the best we can.
Right. Absolutely. And what would, I think, you said before, and I'm paraphrasing, but you've said kind of, let the club be the club and do the club things. How would you, I guess what I'm looking for is what is useful feedback and input. Again, kind of going back to earlier, we talked about how to provide feedback and input. What would you say is the most valuable feedback and input for MECA? Because I think everybody approaches it wanting to help. Everybody approaches it, this is what makes me feel better about being involved, so this is what I'm doing to make myself feel better about being involved. And I think it's definitely kind of a personal thing coming into it. But looking at from an objective point of view, seeing, I'm sure, tens of thousands of ideas come across over time. What is the most valuable feedback and input for MECA to grow? Okay, well, the first thing is, if it's not fair, it's not fair. Whether it's one person or 10 people or 100, it doesn't matter. So fair is fair. So we want to keep that in mind no matter what the suggestion or the issue is. But, one of the main things we get that isn't helpful is people basically wanting something for them. Okay, right. A personal issue, okay, where it basically comes down to this person would need their own class. You want us to make a class for you, or you want us to make a class for basically 3 vehicles. Just for an example, in sound pressure, we have a Radical X division. We have hundreds and hundreds of cars in the United States that compete in Radical X. Right. But there's not one vehicle out of all those that actually meets the Radical X criteria at the far end of the spectrum. Not one of them. Wow. So in essence, we really have no Radical X vehicles. Okay, but we have rules for them. Right. If somebody would come. Case, right. Yeah. But it can still be fun. We've made what we do with that type of vehicle fun. Right. Try to do that. But the one thing you can do that would really be helpful is
just keep your eyes and ears open. If you see something that you don't think is fair, you just need to tell us. I don't care what it is. Really, it could be the littlest thing. If it's not fair, it's not fair. And I want to know about it. If I can fix it or help it along, I will.
Right. Good,
we will.
Good. What would your advice be to people who, especially, I think, whether they're new or they've been doing this 20 years, I think probably one of the biggest issues in people's minds is perceived inconsistency on score sheets. And I guess this goes back to kind of our previous conversation, is how do you make it objective and perfect, and you don't. But for people who are expecting that, especially with MECA, you have 100 points, so it's already a smaller score sheet than the others. And then you have quarter points, so then the spread might be, if you're to put in 1 point increments, the spread, might come across as 3 points on the score sheet, but it's really 12 points if you...
Right. Yeah, it's a 100-point score sheet, but it's 400 increment.
Right. So, there's flip sides of that, because then if you have somebody coming in new that has something decent, they might come in with a 68 or 72 or something like that, and then they, look at that and go, I'm only 10 points off of Mark Eldridge. Well, those are a lot. That's a big 10 points. But, or somebody might come in to finals or a 3X show and be judged by 3 different judges, and they might get an 82, a 81 and a half, and a 74. So how you're able to look at it kind of from a whole, because you're seeing the overall trends. So, that 74 might have been a better placement than the 81 and a half or whatever, looking at from the whole. But the competitor doesn't really see that. They see, a average score, and they see they got 4th place with a 78 or whatever. What would your advice be to competitors in kind of how to use and read the score sheet? What do they do with that info when they get it?
Well, the main reason that we have the score sheet and the notes, given that your judge is giving you notes, is so that you have some information about tuning. Now, to me, if I'm scoring and I put that your treble, your high end, high frequencies out of 10, I'm giving you a 5, that's saying something's really wrong. And then you read the rule book and you read the criteria, and number, if you get 5 points, it says 5 points is slightly diminished, somewhat distorted, and you read, okay, well, if it's doing that by the rule book, then I need to listen. And number 1, can I hear what he's talking about, or he or she's talking about? Number 2, do I know what to do about it? And then number 3, if I don't, on number 1 and 2, I've got to find somebody who does. So you maybe have to go back to the judge and ask for an explanation.
Right.
Okay, that's, they're the person that heard it.
Right.
Keep in mind for a judge, we're supposed to go in there and we're just supposed to be a pair of ears. So, when you judge a car, even though you might have been in it 4 or 5 times, really you're supposed to start over again. It's like a fresh car. You've never heard it before. Let's get it done. I know, it's hard to put stuff out of your mind because, you have a memory and you have a musical memory. I have too good of a musical memory on some things that gets me in trouble sometimes. But, if you're a competitor that's questioning the scores, first check with the judge. And usually the judge is there after you get your score sheet, so you can talk to them for a couple minutes. And, the judge should be helpful, and there should be no problem with them explaining why they got that. And sometimes they may not be able to explain it very well. Sometimes it's just an impression. I know sometimes I'm not really quantifying. I'm not taking precise notes where, check that oboe at 4 minutes and 10 seconds, although I might say, well, the oboe.
Right.
So just get as many people as you can to listen. Take the judges as that pool of listeners, and take what they tell you and work on those issues. Now, in MECA, we do have a cool thing at the single and double point events where we do a free clinic before the judging. And if possible, it should be a knowledgeable sound quality person that's not going to be the judge, but sometimes it is. And they go over the system with you briefly. They don't make any adjustments themselves. You make your own adjustments, but they show you how to use your equipment maybe a little better, or how to access tuning parameters that you didn't know were there, or tell you to look for them, or whatever, to talk to your car audio dealer if you're a customer and have them help you take care of it, your retailer or your installer. So you have a lot of resources to just get as many people as you can to listen and keep in mind what you like the best. I tell people all the time, you can listen to your system any way you want when you leave here. But for today, when I'm judging you, I'm using the rule book, and you have to tune to the rule book to get the most points if you want to be a competitive, part of the contest. Now, if you just want to listen to, like I've had people, you've got rear fill, it's killing me. I like it like that. Okay. I'm not going to change it. I don't know how to change it. I don't care. Okay, I'm just going to judge it that way. Right. And that's just what you have to do. But you have to go by the rule book, and if you ding them, you ding them. But, just keep looking for input, and but you have to know what sounds good yourself, too. Right. You have to have a good basis for that.
Right. What about scoring inconsistencies with one judge? Let's say you have one judge that does your car all season, and you never touch the thing, and you get a 5-6 point difference throughout the season, and then again at finals you may not change the thing, but then you dump down another 3 or 4 points or
same judge. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't even know what to say to that, but
and I'm bringing this up because it does happen. People talk about it, and it doesn't get talked about because I think it's kind of like the elephant in the room that is like, well,
we know subjective stuff's a problem,
bad. Right?
So if we talk about it, we're just gonna make it worse. But you gotta talk about it. Right. So,
well, for myself, I mean, and I'm gonna speak for myself as a human. If I have a birth defect with one of my ears that affects my eustachian tube and how it clears. So elevation, if I just got off a plane,
barometric pressure,
exactly. If the weather's changing, or down to human stuff, like if you haven't ate breakfast or you did eat breakfast, or it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon versus 11 o'clock in the morning. Our bodies change, how we perceive things change, our emotions change, and I think all those things add up for me. I mean, even judging, if I was sitting there judging my own studio system at home that never changes, I'm going, there are times I go, well, that sounds a little bit funny, or man, that sounds awesome, and nothing's changed, and I might just see it, differently.
Humidity and barometric pressure and all of this stuff makes gigantic difference, and your mood, and how much light you've had, your vitamin D. I mean, all these things make it. Yeah.
And I think one thing I would encourage some people who have problems with that to do is to, not even have to be in a judging situation, but put a score sheet in front of you, sit down in your own car, and judge your own car.
I tell people that all the time, right?
And then, and don't total the scores. Just write down a score sheet. Look at the rule book. As you're doing it, cheat all you want as far as that goes. Use the rule book and the definitions and everything else to go down and judge your own car. Because I think too, there's so much when people listen to something, they might go to a show and they listen to 10 cars, and they go, "That's the best sounding car here." But they didn't put a score sheet to it themselves, and
still emotional,
right. Yeah. So it might be the best sounding car here, but that may not mean it's the best scoring car. Right. So, there are those casual listening experiences that are great to have, but that doesn't translate into a score sheet. And the same thing, if you do that with yourself, I think you'll see your own biases to your own system based on all those factors. And so again, I guess the only thing I'm trying to get across, and if you see it the same way or not, but it's one of those things where it's going to vary because it's going to vary. But at the same time, the way MECA does the judging, especially with starting, by class and going up, is, hopefully the judges or vehicles that got judged around your vehicle were judged around the same time during the same circumstances as much as possible. Right. So again, and you've seen more score sheets than probably anybody ever because you go through all of them. So, is that what you see? I mean, I'm sure you see some variances, but I mean, is it all within those kinds of tolerances you would think?
Well, yeah. And the tolerance to me is among judges, let's say we have the 3-judge setup, at a triple pointer finals, you want to see the judges be within 5% or 5 points of each other. Okay. And that could be plus or minus 2.5 either side. Right. But anyway, 5 points is pretty good. So if you can get that, you're doing pretty good. Okay. But watching them over time, you just have to look at the proportion of your scores, keeping in mind tonality is the major part of the scoring, and 60% or a little bit more, and then staging is the other part of that, right, with your ambience and stuff. So just like you said, get that score sheet, see where you think you lay, where you are, then go listen to other cars and see, okay, if that guy got 8.5 and I got a 7.5, then right, I should be able to hear the difference. Right. Okay. On tonality, on staging, again, one reason we use the studio for staging training is because it's so precise. Right. It's like ridiculous. It's like a car could be like that, but it would be an incredible car with staging that was that precise. So, you just, it's experiences,
I think one of the first instincts of people when they see that, especially across 3 judges, and again, they see 2 consistent and 1 that might be off, I think the first indication or the first thought process that goes in somebody's head is, well, that guy tanked me. That guy doesn't like me. That guy doesn't like the equipment I run. That guy doesn't. Right.
Lower than the other 2. Let's say he's scoring lower.
Right.
On you. Was he scoring pretty much lower on the
everybody?
Of the
right.
Other vehicles? Because if he is, then that's showing a pattern that there's most likely no bias or no issue there.
Right.
We look at that a lot.
Right. And And I think that's something where they need to just give you a call. Right.
You're the judge.
Right. Right. But I mean, as far as being able to see, because obviously, again, they're not seeing the trending of that judge. They can't see that judge versus that judge with another car unless they talk to all their friends and compare score sheets.
Which they're going to do.
Right. But if they don't have that luxury,
right,
then I'm guessing the only real scenario is to call you and say, hey,
we can talk about it.
Look at look at this compared to the people around me, and does that look consistent or not?
Most of the time, just to be honest, I'm going to side with my judge.
Right.
Because most of the time I know who they are and I have confidence in them. And if not, I'm going to say so. There's maybe some things I can't say. Right. But, I have pretty good confidence in judges that I've trained, right, in particular. And, they do get weeded out over, a 2 or 3 year period of time. Right. You don't see too many sound quality judges last much more than 2 or 3 years.
Right. Right. Well, I guess my main point is to not take it personal and say I'm never going to do this again because of XYZ.
Well, for sure, yeah, for sure.
Because it seems like especially first year or 2 year competitors coming in at finals have big expectations on what's going to happen, and you and I both know that you can make all the predictions in the world you want, and finals is still going to be different.
Right. Well, yeah. One thing, just working with local judges, when a local judge tells you that you need to reinforce your mid-bass and you add the mid-bass drivers and you go back to the show and there's definitely more mid-bass and, he's going to score you more mid-bass. I mean, he can't help but do that. He's giving you a suggestion. You've followed the directions. Now it sounds more like he wanted. The score's going to go up. Well, you do that over time, over a year, and the score goes up here. It goes up there. Guy says you need this. You improve that. Your score goes up there. And then by the time you get to the finals, sometimes your score may be a little inflated, right, on the local level by what you're going to see at finals, because these people have worked with you and they like you. And, if they're going to give you a benefit of the doubt, which, we tell them not to, but it's it's human thing, right, they're going to give you that 1/4 point. And that makes a difference at finals. Right. Big time. Or the big events. So, take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it personal. It is an evolution, and, let's just say you're going to keep your system forever. For like one of my vehicles I have, as long as I live, I'm going to keep that vehicle and that audio system. I love it. That's the way it's going to be. If you have that kind of system, just maximize its performance and learn to live with it. Never give up. But, there is going to come a point where you're getting everything out of it you can, whether it's sound pressure or sound quality. Right. And there's just not much more you can do. You can change it, but that doesn't mean it's going to be better. Right. Just do the best you can. Enjoy what you like to enjoy.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we will wrap there.
We did good.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Very cool.
And we will chat soon.
Go MECA.
Yay.
Yay.